So we might get started. Thanks for giving up your afternoon to come here. We really appreciate it. My name is Danny. I'm from the BBC Education Portfolio. Here's Catherine as well. We're going to be trying to facilitate today's discussion. I reread the. Sorry?
Not trying.
Not trying. We're going to be trying very hard. We're going to. I've reread the abstract that we sent out about this thing, and I think we may have done a bit of a bait and switch almost. But you're the one who's going to be inspiring us today, as opposed to we, or you inspire each other as opposed to us inspiring you per se. So the way that today's going to run mainly is we've got two main things we want to get out of today. One is where you inspire us. Actually, both kind of where you inspire us. To think about what kind of things you want. Okay? Because obviously we've just started with Canvas and there's a bunch of people who are working in the background to get the juice out of Canvas. That sounds weird. And try to represent that to you guys as teachers, designers, support staff, and those kind of people in a way which is meaningful or useful for you. And so most of today will be spent kind of discussing, designing, thinking about, throwing ideas around how that may look like for you or what may be useful. And also towards the end we want to kind of think about how we can then, Catherine will speak to this a bit, how institutional things can help you get access to things like what we talk about. Okay, so either the raw stuff or some pre-processed nice graphs that you can then use to improve your learning and teaching. Okay, so that's kind of today. Hopefully it's not too much bait and switch. If it is, then feel free to go to one of the other sessions. So to start with collaborative design, we wanted to kind of think about a blank slate, blue sky kind of thing. What would you like, in your particular roles, or if you were to step into a different kind of role for just a minute, what would be useful for you? And so the brief for us today, being designers of this magical online tool that's going to be built by next week, Josh, right?
Yes.
Good, okay.
I'm just delegating.
Delegating, okay, he's delegating 2 weeks. To design an online tool that will help staff, okay, so we're not focusing so much on the student angle today. It's about students, but it's not for students. Okay? It's for staff in general. Help them to understand and improve students' learning experiences and outcomes. Okay, so that's what we're all here for. What we're employed to do, I guess. As part of this online tool, what we want you to focus or think about things that you could get from Canvas. Now, hopefully, most people here are familiar with Canvas. Yeah, okay. Ooh, okay. So forget about Blackboard. Think about what things that could come from Canvas. Because it's blue sky, we don't want to kind of tell you the things that Canvas can give us. We want you to imagine the things that it could give us. Okay. And you can think about things like Echo and Sydney Student Timetabling as well if you wanted to, or any other kind of university system. But we want you to focus primarily on Canvas because presumably that's where most of the learning happens. Okay. And if the only Canvas course that you know just has a bunch of PDFs, that's cool too, to think about PDF downloads. Think about when you're designing this thing in your table groups, think about what you may like to know, okay? And then how you may like to know this, and also why you may like to know this as well. So again, the reason why we're not telling you anything, but asking lots of questions, we don't want to taint your discussions. We want this to be perfectly blue sky. Afterwards, after we have this designing in the tables, report back from the tables, Josh will then taint your discussions with what is possible from Canvas. Okay, so we'll see a bit of what is possible, but primarily we want to get from you what you guys think is useful. Okay? So in terms of that brief, we want to kind of angle it in terms of 4 perspectives. So one is the unit coordinator. Okay, so what may be useful for a unit coordinator to see, to know. One is a tutor. Okay, so one of 20 tutors working in a large or small or whatever cohort. The third one is an educational designer or a learning designer or education technologist or an academic developer. Any one of these kind of teaching support roles. And the fourth one is the student support officer, which are the student support roles. Okay. Are we all familiar with these roles at university? Kind of? Okay. Good. So the way that we're going to be doing this is something called brain writing, which is quite strange. The idea is we will give you pieces of paper, so you have on your tables pieces of paper which looks like this. There's 3 by 6, and what we want you to do is individually, we want you to think about the brief. We'll put it back on soon. Think about the brief and write in the first column 3 general ideas. You can draw, if you want to draw a chart of what you want to see, that's cool too. If you want to write a few ideas, that's cool too. And then after you write your ideas for round 1, we'll give you about 5 minutes for that. We want you to pass the sheet to the person to your left, and so you'll go around in your circles. And then the person on your left will inspect your sheet, will read your ideas, and try to build on those ideas. Okay? And so the person building on your ideas could either adapt or modify, they could combine a bunch of your ideas together, or they could completely kill them off and write new ones themselves if they hate it so much that they can't look at it. Okay? And then we'll do that for as many rounds as we have people on your tables, and then we'll hopefully come together towards the end with a semi-filled up sheet which has a whole bunch of ideas on it about data which is useful for improving learning and teaching. Okay?
So each row might be, you choose a role?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So you could choose different roles. So you could say row number 1, idea 1 is for unit coordinators, for example. Or you could say at your table you're just going to do all unit coordinators. Okay? But obviously a bit of diversity might be good, so maybe let's not. Okay? So what we might do is, in order to make sure we're not just clumped together as a bunch of data scientists at one table,
which is what's going on over there.
which is what's going on here.
We could have one over here.
That's right, we need to have one on each table.
It might be more expedient if we just introduce yourselves at your table groups. So introduce yourself to each other. I'm sure you probably have already. Where you're from, your role in that place. And if you've got more than 2 people who say the same place or the same role, then kick on them out. And they can move somewhere else.
So ideally we'd have an educational designer and an analyst. Maybe only one of those types of people at each table. I know that might make you a little uncomfortable if you're with your friends. So we probably need an analyst over here. Most exciting. Another person, different person in your group presents most useful, and another different person presents the last one. Yeah. So come up with your 3 things, agree on them, and Danny will probably scribe, I think. I think you just have to stand up.
I'm opting out.
Okay, was that which feasible or related?
I actually agree that is most likely. But for me, the other thing I think is interesting is slightly clearer.
Yeah.
But I was having
It makes more sense. I don't
I think trying boxes around like it's not even close.
managing something. Yeah, basically, yeah. No, I sort of we can't just
Alright, half of the room has agreed. I'm going to go do another round. Have you guys agreed?
Is there anything that's more feasible? We're just deciding on feasibility. Is there anything that's more feasible than just so exciting to be all data in one place, important for a basic graph.
I think start, and the ones that look nervously look at the end. These guys are ready. And I know that they're just great.
Well, given that this
The red
Okay, guys, so what we might do, we might get a few reps from each table to share one basic idea, one feasible idea, one post-it idea from each table. So, these guys seem super keen. You want to start? I'll scribe.
Caleb is good.
and then you can do this. Okay, good, done.
Taylor, watch out, blue sky. Blue sky.
Everyone's freaking out.
A tool that draws data from assignment submissions, special considerations, Canvas logins, recent logins, amount of time spent on Canvas, and uses an algorithm to identify across units of study students at risk. And that can then send an alarm to pro-deans, sub-deans, coordinators, whoever. It's blue sky, and I don't necessarily think it's feasible because of confidentiality issues, and because Sydney is famous for having these huge systems which do not speak to each other. But if anyone can do it, then can.
Go, Debbie!
Alright, cool, thank you. Most feasible, actually, do you want to hear crazy ideas first?
Yeah, that's
Alright, let's go crazy. You guys.
So we want this, everything live. We want teachers to be able to access it in the classroom, in the lecture theatre live, and have that feedback loop happening. Yes.
What do you want live?
Access to the data, so like if the performance data, so if
What they're
students are-
doing in the lecture
what they're
or
doing
what
in-
they're doing online?
both, like, so a teacher can come in just before the class and see what they've done online, but also for what happens in the lecture theatre as well. If we're doing like quizzes or group work or something and accessing Canvas
Yeah.
during that time.
Excellent. Alright, next group.
Okay, so this is probably blue sky, but similar to that one big master database, where everything, so that we don't have to do with Sydney students, special considerations, enrolments, timetables, exam portals, disabilities, I think that sort of thing. But then it would also have the canvassy sort of things, mark entry in their assignment, so that if we wanted to find out something about one student, we could just pin one place. And then we could also, I'm picturing a big database that has different layouts, maybe with different access levels. So you could then also use that for class lists and assigning tutors to students in that. And that it would have an element of tracking engagement, time on task, number of revisions on an assignment, lecture views or note views or downloading or what they're doing, what we're giving them. And then that we could then maybe have also marking going in there. Attendance, exam marking, but that it would all be automatically filling from all these other systems.
Wow.
Not
Let's move back.
and what would make our life
And the fire alarm would then go off.
use it at a unit of study level, so if I go assignment 3, hasn't done it, who has got a special con for that, shouldn't have an extension, what time did they hand it in, I can just filter for who was late, who had a special con, that sort of stuff, down to the real nitty-gritty day-to-day. But that also would then be used to help for intervention and improvement of our delivery over a degree, and then maybe somehow we could then also have fairly graduate outcomes, what they're doing now, where they're going, where did that student end up.
Great.
That's the real big blue
Excellent.
sky.
Good. We need Watson. Alright. That's good. Next crazy idea.
I was relates to the first point as well.
Yep.
We want data on access, what do students access, how much time do they spend on certain sections and certain things? And we'd like to have all that somehow nicely visualized. But then we thought of that, of having that to measure the levels of engagement, which of course feeds into every kind of feature basically.
Might be worth mentioning if you have a particular role, like a particular audience for your mega database, or whatever visualization. Yeah.
For everybody.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah. So that one's for everybody. Yeah.
Next blue sky idea? Yeah.
So our blue sky idea was just to have a student profile page within Canvas and have it be opt-in or opt-out. So whatever the student's happy to share. And some of the data fields could be relevant to their cultural diversity or from their expertise that they bring into the course with, or even just purely social things. So it's not as prescriptive as that, thus it's blue sky idea. But it would allow for social connections, which could form into social learning, but also it's more as a peer support thing. If you want to drive traffic to Canvas early on, then that would be one way to do it. That is purely social.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect, thank you. Right, next blue sky idea?
It's kind of similar to the master database, but having a single portal where you log in and can access data and analytics that are held in across all the various systems that are utilised currently by the university. And within that, it'd be nice if you could manipulate or collect data from each of those systems nicely and easily to somehow represent it visually, data visualization, so it's easier to understand. And to add to that, because Catherine just brought up the point of roles, it'd be nice if all roles could use that single portal, but each role base would have a different view.
Yeah.
You'd filter out the data and functions based on the role.
Thank you. Next blue sky idea? Two groups left.
Yes. So we sort of looked at it from the point of view of sort of the students and trying to sort of understand some of the profiles that was previously mentioned. Sort of just really trying to identify, who've got higher performing students through performance and high interactions, whereas low interaction but still high performance. So how we can actually profile sort of the different students and provide automated, personalised feedback. So I think without the data, we actually need to do something with it once we know what we need to do. And I think that's probably the main focus, I think, for us is that personalised feedback.
Perfect. Okay. Have you guys got all of those ideas? All right, let's think other end, feasible. What's your most feasible, most tough thing to excel at the draw graph? So the other end of the feasibility spectrum. Who wants to start with the boring?
Demographic info that includes, all the usual things about students as they enroll, but including first and family, languages spoken, all of the things that actually impact on student retention. We know it's feasible because Blackboard used to be able to produce some of those kinds of reports before, but Canvas doesn't appear to give that to us.
We'll touch on that later.
Cool. Thank you. Next feasible idea?
You mean at a summary level? Just mean for the class? Yeah, you don't mean at an individual level necessarily.
Yeah, summary level.
Yeah.
So we also pick graphics.
Yeah.
We can add we also want to add what destination, so to which part we can go. Extra, but it would be easy to put some demographics.
That's because we've got them at CET before they go to the discipline. So
Yeah,
we know
where the tradition is.
Yeah.
So is that just an extension of that one?
Basically.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
So the teachers could view it before they have the class, so they get kind of an overall cohort kind of data visualization or an idea of the cohort as well as.
Excellent. Good. Next people idea?
Well, it's good we had a backup feasible idea because pretty much what we've discussed was pretty much what the first and second group was, just the availability of those basic stats. But we also said it would be interesting to have just a quick anonymous feedback even on the page or an update on the page in Canvas. For example, if a student doesn't understand something, then they can just provide, indicate that they could use a little bit of assistance with that, or just saying this is not clear enough, so we can start capturing that feedback.
Great. So it's like a voting or feedback system for resources.
Pretty much.
That's great. Cool. Thank you. Sounds good. Right. Next people idea?
I think probably going on from that data information, but actually having a dashboard that, depending on if you're an academic or professional staff member, is a list, and from the list you pick what you want to look at. So it's actually a personalised dashboard depending on what information you're looking at from a student perspective, or if you want demographic information, or maybe you want to find out what their learning style is or something like that. So it's actually a personalised database that people would pick what information, so it could change at any time depending on what they're looking for.
Great. Excellent. Any other people ideas?
Okay, so we all agree that we want to see know your student interacting with Canvas, but also up there on the feasible idea, we believe it's most needed as opposed to feasible. Also, language that we find that, at least in our faculty, the units that I've worked with is other language other than English that they're speaking, so that's helped a lot of the teachers change the language that they use when they're teaching. You've got a classroom full of kids that have come from elsewhere, that it helps. But we think a feasible idea would be adaptable templates for whatever we need. So it could be templates for dashboard, it could be also templates for Canvas to help coordinators with organization and alternate methods of access for students that need it. Come on, you knew that was going to come to me.
Okay.
Danny,
What does that mean?
Canvas does not have folders. So you are always going to have, in the simplest or the most complicated site, a huge modules page, which, looking at the feedback so far for me, some of them like that. They really like it. Everything's in one spot. Others are all, no, I want to be told what to do each week. So you can make templates, which is essentially just another page full of links to each of the kinds of content. And if we had kind of assistance for that, we could make them look similar and then have very diverse modules pages, but then link through to the template. Essentially just a page.
I'm going to put a question mark around that one because it's not quite on topic, but that's good.
Just
Thanks, Caleb.
because they came here to get to you.
All right, good. Any other feasible ideas?
That's good. No,
It's a self-authoring dashboard.
So this is it's like a student-facing resource auto-generator, auto-organizer-y thing.
Somebody would also go back into how
He just wants a contents page.
Yeah, that's different.
The contents page. Oh yeah. How does it fit into what we're doing this afternoon?
Yes.
Because you build a template for the university based on data, looking at what students have struggled with, the places they haven't visited. Mine struggle to find library readings, for example. The places they visit too often, the dead ends they go down. So it's informed by the data. Yes, it's a contents.
Okay, cool. That's good. Thank you.
Our table, the feasible idea is to generate a graphic of the number of students who visit and engaged with the content of the site.
Visit, engage.
Would you want it broken down by particular pages or just in general?
I think it was by page. I think it was by page.
We can add to it.
pages, individual pages.
Perfect. Alright, cool. Any more feasibles? Right, most important. Most needed. We need it yesterday. Yep.
So we were thinking if we can set up a link in Canvas for collecting weekly feedback, weekly or frequencies up to how many lectures you have. Like after each lecture, there are some techniques called minute paper or Marius point and active learning technologies, like techniques like just post 2 questions there, 2 or 3 questions. One on content, maybe what was the most difficult part of the content, today's content, and what was the worst part or the easiest part of today's content. Maybe that could be one question, and one on delivery. I mean, it's just an example. One on lecture delivery, like what was good about the lecture, what was bad about the lecture, something like that. So just 2 or 3 questions. So after each lecture, the lecturer can log in and see student response in large courses where you have 1,000 students. Get instant feedback instead of waiting for the end of the semester. It's like ongoing, you can improve.
Yeah, so it's a way for teachers to understand what their students are getting and not getting.
It's
And
feedback,
how they're-
basically feedback.
Yeah, cool, excellent. Other most needed idea.
So we were thinking a definition that at the higher faculty universal level of the most important metrics that all courses should use for defining student engagement, so that it's clear what things every unit coordinator kind of wants to have as a bare bones idea of how their students are performing, and then they use that to then build on all these other things which are then more unit specific about their one of extra metrics that they are useful for them, but you've still got those core ones that everyone understands and uses, so you can also compare across the university between different units.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think the key there being definitions, like universally agreed upon definitions.
And in a university like ours, we know how much that can be. But again, that brings down this. There's a lot of talk of this magical word called engagement. What's the mean by that? Cool. Other most needed ideas?
We had 2 kind of trackers. One, a completion tracker for like tracking task completion, pre-class, post-class and assessments, and then a progress tracker that looks at academic progress, again pre, post and assessment, but pre being like in a flipped learning model. So what are they doing pre-class, during class and then assessments?
And is that for students as well, for students to see their progress so they can go back and go on?
Yes, yeah. So we love to have teacher view and student view. Oh, and also in the progress tracker, if they don't hit certain, in the completion tracker, if they don't complete a certain percentage, then there's an auto notification sent to teachers and students.
Cool. Excellent. Sounds good. Thank you. Other most needed. Yep.
We thought of something like a student portfolio. I mean, I don't know whether it's coming from the wrong end, but that rather than having, all that, when you leave, you would have ongoing access to all the assignments and marks and everything, and the lectures that you got, and the et cetera. Basically, you have your degree there in a little parcel that you could take away.
It's like a data parcel of your
with all the work you did, and the lectures you got, and the prac notes you had, and the prac results you got.
And it's also part of like a continuing professional development.
Yeah, that you could maybe use, For example, I've still got a cupboard in my kitchen full of all my notes and textbooks. Why? I need to I know, but...
It may be important. Alright, cool, thank you. Other most needed? Yep.
Well, we still think that's the most needed though.
Which one?
Naturally.
I would rather spend money on that than anything else.
Oh, that's the question, isn't it? What would you spend money on?
Yeah,
I'd
actually.
So, most needed is a know your student report from Canvas that digs a little deeper than what we've had in Blackboard. That is easy to download as a CSV as well as PDF. And you can either choose per student or full cohort.
Oh, my data privacy radar's going.
Anti disability.
Well, and the big one is that
Certain things.
special cons, managing special cons is a big issue. So if we can get that into some sort of report, get everyone happy.
Cool, thank you. That?
More than something I was going to extend, attendance. You know, there's a lot of need to differentiate. A lot of things happen across the university, but attendance really isn't one of them. There's lots of different solutions, and there's lots of partial and patchy data. Perhaps some combination of students sort of swiping in, swiping out as they enter rooms. Use of Wi-Fi data to massively collect, things like that, which we're already doing, actually. We're just not using anything useful with the data. If you're logged into the system, we know, it's known where you are. So just sort of doing that so we sort of have, we waste a lot less time. I mean, the students here learn, the activities, we have this whole thing going on, and we're spending time at the beginning of classes reporting attendance in ways that are very manual.
Shit.
Other part of that is if students aren't attending, what we're going to do. So intervention.
Okay, let's raise some interesting discussions. Other most needed.
I was going to say it, Danny. I think if we have the SRES with an open portal to Canvas, all of these problems will be solved.
Oh, just magic that up and not.
If we can talk to, was it Sydney? Sydney students?
Yeah.
Sydney student talks to SRES here. And Canvas, I think all this. Yeah, so.
Cool.
Yeah,
Alright.
connection
Just making
between
things go.
SRES and Canvas. Really good.
Alright, any other, there was another hand up for the most needed somewhere. No? Okay. Thank you for that. That was really helpful. I think as we were discussing this, people were raising their ideas. I heard a lot of ooh and going around the room. I think it means that we're all kind of on the same boat in terms of we love this idea of master database, even though it may never happen. That's why it's the most valuable.
Never say never, Danny.
But we have you can do a thing. But we have a lot of similar ideas here in terms of being able to know how our students are going, know who our students are. Be able to manage students a bit more easily, especially for the massive classes that we do have. So that's really good. Hopefully that wasn't a strange. It was too strange an exercise. I guess the point of us surfacing all these things now is then over the next, months, years, going away and trying to address some of these. Some of these are already possible. Some of the most needed are already possible using systems like what Jean mentioned before. Some of the feasibles, even some of the blue sky are already kind of possible. We just need to point you in the right direction to make them possible. Some need to be developed. Some probably will never happen, like the masterclass database. Because we're Sydney University, that's why. Okay. What we might do now is we might show you a little bit. We want to hold on to a piece of paper, so don't leave without them. So don't leave with them. We want to hold on to them the other way around. We want to kind of bring Josh up now. Josh is from the IAP group, the Institute of Analytics and Planning, and these are the guys who essentially try to do this thing. Okay, so Josh will show.
We are doing it.
They're trying to do this thing.
We are.
You didn't even get echo data until recently. And that was because I had to do something. These are the guys who are trying to do this master database. So he'll show us things which he's put together, which may speak to some of the roles that we've been talking about today, to kind of start to land the plane a bit in terms of what's feasible and also what's most needed. Okay, so Josh, you want to pop up?
Thanks for that devastatingly brutal. Thank you for that. So, what I'm going to show you is a proof of concept. It's not ready for prime time, but it is a demonstration of. Are you going to do it? I suppose. Yep. Unfreeze and then turn off. That's off as well. Okay, so what we're looking at is a bit of an example of what is possible when we do connect things together. So we've heard a lot about this master database, and what I can tell you is that a lot of the master database already exists. So Canvas can be connected to Sydney Student, it can be connected to timetabling, Wi-Fi can be connected to timetabling, to abstract attendance, all of these things can be theoretically done, okay? And a lot of these things do exist in proofs of concept, and as always, the questions are always around governance, they're always around getting the definitions right, they're always around privacy concerns, they're always around ethics concerns, opt-ins, opt-outs, and all of that. So this is kind of, I don't want to kind of spark a kind of mad rush here, because we are the University of Sydney, and a master database is possible technically. It could be done in a couple... Sorry? Okay, I'll stop. Okay, look, let's look at Canvas, and this is a bit of a picture of, I tried to kind of construct a simplified kind of picture of the activity that goes on within a unit of studies page on Canvas. So this is looking at the data from 2017 semester 2, which was when Canvas was being trialled. We do have the data for this semester. The raw data for this semester is about 140 gigabytes. Worth of plain text activity logs, so it's pretty humongous stuff. But this is looking at a unit study. I've just picked a random one, which is Bio 1007, which was the biggest of the units that was doing Canvas last semester. And this is a breakdown of, over here you've got, I don't know if you can see them properly, but this is a bit of a breakdown of the demographics of that cohort, similar to the Know Your Student reports. So we've got a gender split, domestic and international, mode of study, part-time versus full-time, commencing first degree, whether they're reported with a disability. We could get ATSI, we could get first in family, we could get any of the things that are in Sydney Student. So this is directly linked to the demographic information that appears in Sydney Student. But what's interesting is that alongside this, we've linked it to every time the student has actually logged into Canvas and viewed an asset on the page. So what this table here is giving you is it's showing you each of the pages for each of the weeks of lecture content. Right. And you can see that the week 1 lectures, out of 1,772 students in the course, most of them looked at week 1, okay, and there were 7,656 user sessions, so that's a session in which the student logged in, where they hit week 1. And as you'd expect, this kind of drops off over the course of the semester down towards, week 12's lectures, where there were only 3,400 user sessions from about 1,454 students. So this can be done, so what we can actually do is we can look at this for any piece of asset. So this is looking at lectures, but we can just as easily look for the pages on practicals. So if I just search for the asset name called practical, the system will refresh itself, and now it'll give me all of the pages on Canvas that have the title practical in them. Yes?
When you're saying asset, do you mean...
A page, a quiz, an assignment, a file, anything that exists in Canvas. So it's a universal kind of search over any asset.
So there's a page with lecture?
Sorry?
The lectures page?
Yes, so this unit took the approach of uploading its lectures each in a separate page.
Right, so page for week 1.
Yes, yeah, it's the page for week 1. So this unit also had pages for practicals. Some units organise it differently, so you'd have to kind of tailor this for each unit, but you can see which weeks have the largest kind of number of sessions on a practical, and then you can look at that and you can graph it out over the weeks of semester. So you can see here that the week 2 practical was very big in week 2. And which of the weeks are kind of very hot in terms of the content. So this idea was blatantly stolen from Danny, who told me to include this a chart like this. But I guess how you link this back to the concept of the master database is that everything talks to everything. So because we have here the Know Your Student type demographic data, we've got here a chart of what degrees and courses and faculties the students in this unit come from. So if I just wanted to look at the students that are doing the Bachelor of Medical Science, I could click on that. And when we go back out, all of these interactions are now filtered just to look at that group of students. Obviously, that's not very useful in and of itself, but you could look at, if you were a tutor for a particular tutorial, you could just look at your students in your particular tutorial group or your lecture stream, or you could choose to look at just domestic students or just international students. And you can find out, what are the kind of dates during semester. So this is a chart of every day of semester, and you can see kind of, there must have been a big assessment that was due over here, some kind of a major project, and you can see over here that, this was just before the exam, and the day after the exam it kind of pretty much drops to nothing. And you can even kind of look at what times of day students are active. So over here you can see this is from midnight, going down 4 a.m, 5 a.m, 6 a.m, and then kind of, going up to 11 p.m. Yes, there are plenty of students online at 4 a.m. In fact, so this is a simplified report. If anyone wants to see the complicated reports, the complicated report looks a bit like this. Give it time. This is the whole university, okay, for semester 2. And you can see this beautiful curve where it's midnight down to 4 a.m. and then there's pulses at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. And the pulses are about 10 minutes after the hour. So that's when everybody gets into class and they start logging in and they kind of, open up Canvas and they can see that. You can even see the pulses by each of the weeks. And if you want to look at, what students are most active between the hours of 3:30 and 5:30 or something. Any guesses for which faculty's students?
Oh, engineers.
No. No. Medicine, postgraduate medicine, because they're all in hospitals on the night shift looking at stuff. And you'll actually be able to see this once the filtering is complete. What's happening? Hasn't filtered. Anyway, I can tell you it's medicine though. And then before that, if you go a bit earlier in the night, if you go about 2 a.m, it's architecture. And at about 3, 4, 5 a.m, it's medicine. But the amount of data that you can expose from this gets a little bit ridiculous, which is why user interface and experience is a real concern, because once you start collecting all of this information, trying to present it in any kind of meaningful form is quite difficult, which is why one thing that we've found to be quite useful is preparing smaller pieces of analysis on specific, like domain-specific areas. So this was something that we did for the academic board on assignment submission times. So this is every assignment that was submitted by Turnitin on Canvas in semester 1 of this year. And you can see, for example, that, so this is the percentage of students that submitted it. So this is kind of like a percentile of submission time, and this is the average mark. And you can see over here when it starts getting late that the students' marks start falling. And you can also look at the percentage of late submissions by when the due date is. So, for example, if you set your due date to be at 9 a.m, right, 13% of those are late. Right, if you set your due time to be at 5 p.m, it's 11%. And if you set your due time to be midnight, hold on a sec, it's 10.74%. So there's a lot of talk around the university for having, uniform submission times being at midnight or at 5 p.m. or being at 9 a.m. And there's a lot of hard statistics to prove that if you set, a lot of people set a 9 a.m. deadline thinking, it's when I come into work and it's when I'm going to start marking. But really kind of students will stay up all night working on the assignment. In fact, if I look at the students for the 9 a.m. due time, this is the frequency of submissions by hour in the last 48 hours before due. And you can see that there was a spike here at about 10 hours before the due date. Right, so that's about 11 p.m. So these are the students that actually submitted before going to sleep. And these are the students that worked all throughout the night. And these are the students that submitted in the last hour. Okay, and when you contrast that with the due time at midnight, right, it's a much more gradual curve instead. So there's actually a real kind of noticeable change in behaviour as well when you look at things like that. So yeah, so I think a lot of the value in the Canvas data is in small domain-specific analysis. When you start connecting everything together, like I said, it starts to get a bit crazy. But hopefully this kind of demonstrates what is possible. Anything is possible. The hurdles with the university being the university are all governance related. They're all governance and ethics and platform related and technology related and things like that. But honestly, your ideas today have definitely reflected a lot of what we're already doing. So take heart and take hope that there are some more good things to come. Yes?
Hi, I'm a student.
Yep.
Just interested in whether you can check how often a student clicks on the marks page
The marks page, yes, we can
so
do
they
that.
haven't got their marks yet.
Yep.
And
That's a good
associated
one.
with the anxiety waiting
Yep.
for something to
Yep.
mark.
Yeah. So there's a series of, so in addition to classifying by page and assignments and things, we've got some special functions that look at the marks page, the announcements page, the front page of the website and all of that. So yeah, that would be an interesting one actually. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah.
Can we access this data if our students aren't in Sydney student?
If your students aren't in Sydney students, I don't know how they would be in Canvas then if they weren't.
CET students are in Canvas, but they're not in Sydney student.
They've got uni keys though.
Yes.
Yes, if they've got a uni key, that's fine. Their identifier will show up as a uni key. So they would appear in the Canvas data.
Yes.
They wouldn't be associated with any demographics in Sydney student though. So I understand CET is supposed to be going over to Sydney student sometime. I heard it was this year and apparently now it's not this year.
Yeah.
But I think the value of that will happen as and when Sydney student happens. Yeah.
Joshua, just to get past the governance and make this happen sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
is it possible, like with knowing your students, to kind of strip out identity information and still give coordinators something quite full like this? The individual students aren't being identified, but...
Wait, let me just clarify.
Yeah.
So there's actually no reason why a teacher shouldn't be able to see this information. So it depends on the purpose and the person who's looking at the data. If it was identifiable information and you wanted to write a research paper about it, that would be a separate issue. If you're a teacher and it's part of your role or you're doing student support, there's no reason why you can't see certain information, especially learning activity. It gets more sensitive around things about disability or going to see CAPS or things like that where we're actually not allowed to reveal student identities. But I just wanted to dispel that. So the privacy and the ethics stuff is not as much in terms of your role, and you need it to do your work and you would do a better job if you had that information.
Because we have all that information anyway, it's just not
It's not talking.
together. Yeah.
It's not talking. The way I designed this is that there is a search bar at the top where you can actually type in an SID and it will give you the complete interaction profile for that student. So if I don't know, pick a random.
We need to finish up.
Yeah. We need to finish up. Okay,
I
I'm getting
want to
dinged
respect
off.
the time at 3 o'clock where you can disappear if you want to and get teas and coffees.
So that gives a bit of perspective on what could be possible.
It's already possible.
We say a lot of things like it's already possible, but then you can't log into the system. You know? No one has access. Not necessarily. What Catherine just said, people should have access to it, but they don't. So there's a lot of other layers at play as well. But what I want to also know, what Craig said before about doing something with the data, these things don't let you do anything. They're pure dashboard visualization tools, and so I think we have to work together to figure out what you want to do and how you want to do that with this kind of data as well. Okay.
Okay. So I just thought it's a terrible slide, and I'm very, very sorry. I just want to give you a bit of a broader picture of what we're trying to do in terms of enabling learning analytics more broadly, in case people are more interested in the space. So I know you've come specifically today to think about Canvas data and your role as teacher or educational designer. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the bigger picture of what we're trying to drive in terms of enablement. And for some people that will be very much focused on their teaching, and for other people they'll be thinking about research, for other people they'll be thinking about writing tools, for other people who are analysts and things you'll be thinking about crunching the data to shove into the tools. So there's different people in the room. So sort of my mantra is to try and get people access, and people like Craig as well, get people access to data and start using data, because that's what we really want happening. These are how my life sort of revolves around these different streams of work. So governance, so some examples of work that we've done is getting some principles written for learning analytics, establishing an advisory board, looking at the gaps in our policies and procedures, starting to think about how do we have a process where people apply to use raw data, can have these slides later for them. And we're starting to think about governance roles and structures. So from my perspective, I'm just doing that from education perspective, and other people are inputting that from research, if you think about the different sort of lives of the university. We started looking at things like an educational data bank, which is not really the master database, but it's really getting our key data assets together in one place so we can start using them either for building tools that other people will use, but people that are more technically able and want to dig into the data themselves, providing it in one sort of place. The university is looking at its data architecture design more broadly, and we're having input into those conversations. Some tools that you've already started seeing, so the SRES software, the Know Your Student and Know Your Unit dashboards, which are actually live already through Oracle, but we just haven't publicised it, and we'll do a big drive now, but we hear what you're saying about integration from Canvas, so we'll do what we can to move towards that more quickly. There's a new HDR completions dashboard. Josh has started to fiddle pretty heavily with Canvas data. We're making a decision at the university level, if you're into building your own visualisations, about an enterprise level software agreement on visualisation software like Tableau, Power BI, Click, different things like that we're looking at. There's a proof of concept going on for students about using Wi-Fi data and how they might be able to see the space that's available. So they walk into the front of the library of Fisher and they see red, green areas, whatever. Okay, so that's happening. We're trying to get some support going for people that want to use data, want to see data. So this event today is the special interest group of the CRLI, but we've got the EI team that Danny and Adam are a part of. We've got quality and analytics. We're just starting to hire more people in that space. I've got a job which I think hopefully might be useful for you, is to provide a cheat sheet of all the data and tools that we have in one place. Even if I can't get the data in one place, at least I'll have a cheat sheet that tells you where to find it. Education grants that you could apply for, and we're starting to engage as much as we can internally and externally with different groups, and we're trying to host events so that we get part of the conversation internally and externally. So we hosted a big conference in March, we've hosted ALSE, we're doing things like today. Anyway, so we hosted the conference in 2018 in Sydney, but if you're interested in going either in the practitioner track or research track, and you want to present some work, you could go to Arizona. The Research Fest will have some sessions on analytics or just data sort of stuff in that Research Fest. It's on the 29th of November, but you can register now if you want to. But we'll keep you in touch. Strategic education grants, you've got to move your booty if you want to be part of those, but and you have to discuss them with someone before you do your proposal. I think probably dive on anyone that's from the education portfolio and not me, Denny, if you want to discuss how that might work, because I'm not really sure about how the timelines go for that. If you want to stay in touch, probably the best way is to join the email list about when we're doing things. I'm going to be torturing the people who've already been using university data either through research applications or institutionally to do a showcase. So if you're interested in how student data is starting to be used, we'll do that October, November. Tweety people if you want to tweet.